Good afternoon, everybody. All right, so we're talking about the future of procurement. Actually, you guys are going to decide the future of procurement. Technology is just going to be rather, I would say, enabler. They cannot drive the procurement in the future. So when we look at why procurement is vital, very important factor. Typical manufacturing companies spend about close to 45% to 85% of their revenue in the procurement spend. When you look at the bottom line of these companies, which is anywhere varying from 7% to 20%, so what it means that every percentage which you'll end up saving can improve your bottom line by 5 to 10%, right? And in case if you really want to put up, scaling up your revenue, what's the kind of investment, effort, and uncertainties which you will be dealing to improvise your bottom line to that extent. So I'm just trying to contextualize what can procurement deliver. Well, I think the times are changing and you require more dynamism. And that's why you require a high level of efficiency in the procurement function. Because with the market situation, demands are expected to go through sudden changes. You require innovation. So new products are expected to be launched by the company, and the procurement department is supposed to play a very crucial role. And the speed, which will be a very, very vital factor when both of these areas are required to be handled. So first part is the cost, the second part is the speed. So let's look at which are the typically broadly key areas in the procurement where you would like to look at the improvement of the efficiency. We look at, I think we've been talking about vendor discovery, onboarding. I think that's one of the challenges which we are looking at when we are talking about speed. Risk. I think the risk dimensions are going to change significantly, and you are, with the speed, required to effectively manage the risk. Requirement management. I think sudden changes coming up in the requirements, and you're required to deal with those changes. You need to have the right information in the right time in order to take those critical decisions. Negotiations. This is all based on information, and negotiations primarily, you're dealing with information and psychology, both. You would be more effective, you are empowered with better information to effectively negotiate with your suppliers. Contract management. It's a complete execution of what you have awarded as a contract, and the whole lot of things which is required to be done when we are looking at the contract management. Very critical aspect with the changing times, supplier relation management. Because if your suppliers are not there with you, I don't think you can innovate as quickly, because supposing a company having 10,000 suppliers, if you're able to motivate these guys to innovate, I think they all have expertise in their own domain area, which is impossible, irrespective of the size, for any organization to have it internally. Supplier evaluation, because you want to see that as you are dealing with the supplier, how are they performing? How are you going to improve their performance in order to improve your own performance? Very important factor, very sensitive area. So you want a visibility of what is happening across. Well, you want to protect your data, very critical data. So you want a security. And very, very important factor, you require competent human resources. I mean, I haven't come across a very prominent institutes which is what runs an academic course on procurement. It's all out of the experience of people. I mean, everybody gains experience over a period of time, dealing with different circumstances, and that's where they would probably be able to transfer out the right kind of SOPs, right kind of strategies. So all of these areas are important. So what's happening? Let's look at the functions. Traditionally, how it is being managed. Huge time spent on transactional activities. I think how much total amount of time you could be spending on the transactional activities? Every point you have human intervention. So I think everything which you do is the data, coordination, everything is constantly human intervention. Many judgments are on the perception of individuals and not based on the data. You don't leverage data as much as you should. Gut feel. I think this is what should be the one, and I would go with my gut feel. Large pool of resources to collect data. You have data all across in the entire function. So it's a massive pool of data. All your analytics, unless you're using some BI tools, but still it is the data which is created is piled up in Excel files. Yeah? Documents. So you require to meet compliance standard, audit requirements, so it's a huge amount of documents which are created. Huge storage points, multiple storage points. These all information lies at different storage points. And extensive internal coordination. I mean, this is the typical traditional procurement function. All of this is being managed. So what are the challenges when we look at this? It leads to maverick buying. It lacks the visibility on the spend, so you probably are not effectively able to design the right strategies. Questionable purity of the data. You're punching the data. I mean, just a simple example, you work out total cost of ownership or landed cost, what we call it, and if you're buying, say, 5,000 line items, you have 5 suppliers, and you have 20 elements of cost, and you're punching out that data there. I mean, one is that there could be naturally a human error, which is not detected. It can lead to a wrong decision. And I don't think I've come across many cases where suppliers come forward and tell you that I've got a higher rate. When they get a lower rate, definitely they would come forward and tell you. How much is the risk mitigation on knowledge? The knowledge resides on every individual buyer. There is no centralized pool of data where all this knowledge is available. Very little time because, as we mentioned, the transactional activities are huge, so very little time for strategic thinking. You have barely an access to desired information in time. Audit challenges. I think all what you do, the auditor walks in at the end of the year and he asks you, hey, why did you take this decision? Huh? Now, you would have struggled all across to get that price, but how are you going to justify whatever justification you have put it up in the document? They would come out with some fancy reasoning. No, this is what didn't happen. You can't recollect how did you land up taking that decision a year back. So I think primarily it is a very stressful environment. Every time you're scared, boss, if I'm taking this decision, what will be the implications? So what is it? Even if you're empowered, you're seriously concerned about it. And I think there is a lack of clarity across all stakeholders, including your suppliers, because it's all transaction driven. So that's where we come to the next stage, is the digitization of procurement. Right? We looked at the traditional procurement, we looked at the challenges. Now, why did the digitization happen? Is to primarily address these challenges. So what happens in the digital procurement? You look at a complete networked environment with all stakeholders. Be it your buyer, be it your bosses, be it your suppliers, be it your logistics provider. It's a complete digital network. You're connected with everybody on real time. So that gives you a visibility of information on real time. On a click, you will know exactly what has happened. You will get the information quickly delivered to you. There are BI tools in the digital economy. Once you have the data, you bring in a responsive BI tool. So while you are actually transacting for a product with a specific vendor, all relevant analytics come to you by default. You don't have to use, you don't have to be expert in using the BI tool. Your all SOP validations can be built in. Whatever validation, today you say, I need 3 quotations, I'll get it from anybody because that's what I'm supposed to do. How did I get it? When did I get it? There are no timestamp, date stamp, no supplier validation, which is happening. You want a central, this would bring a central repository of knowledge. So individual buyer's knowledge will be registered on the central repository. I'm not talking about dream, this is reality. There'll be audit trail because every decision which is taken in the organization, you'll have a complete audit trail for every single decision, including the justification which a buyer is putting on the system. This information is dynamic, it's accessible because it's on the internet. It's 24/7 by 365 days. Well, you also leveraging, say, commodity exchange rates, and you can plug those things in a digital platform. You want to relate those commodity prices to your certain material which you are buying, and I'm sure most of you would be carrying out those analysis in the Excel file and picking up this data. This can happen dynamically. Performance of the suppliers. It's a huge efforts. And again, when I'm talking about supplier performance, there are different criteria which you use for supplier performance. When you are buying a salt and when you are buying an API, there are 2 separate criteria for supplier performance evaluation. For salt buying, your service or delivery in time would be more important, while the quality would be more important when you are buying API. So you would have different parameters which you need to consider when you're looking at supplier evaluation, which needs to be category specific. It cannot be generic. So now what's the challenge? I've got everything now. If I've got a digital platform, I've got everything. Yes, but there are issues. There's a huge pool of data. How do you interpret this data? This data judgment is still based on the individual's perception of that data, right? The humans are required to act upon it. So there is an effort which is required to act on our data. The demand predictions is still based on the data, even if you're looking at analytics. Behavioral pattern, how your suppliers are behaving. When you negotiate, when you are buying so many line items, for each line item, each supplier behaves in a certain manner. After you have dealt with these suppliers for 3 or 4 times, like say he's putting a buffer of 5% in his first quote. Do you know about it? He's willing to give you that discount. Now, if you're able to give him an attractive payment terms, he's willing to drop it at 8%. If you're willing to give him a larger volume, but the same payment terms, he's willing to drop it at 7%. Do you have this insight? What has he done historically? Same items you've been buying from the suppliers, you need this insight which will empower you to design your negotiation strategies much more effectively. There is human collaboration which is necessary for addressing all queries. So you have to at least talk to your supplier for smallest little queries. You have to talk to your internal stakeholder for smallest little queries. These are the problems. See, I think technology is going to spoil you to some extent, because as you start adopting technology, your expectations are going to go to the next level. And I'm trying to take you there, because I look at a traditional process. Now we are looking at the digitized process, and the digitized process also has some challenges which we can visualize. I don't know how many of you have already digitized your processes, because that's what the future is going to be, that even post-digitization, what kind of expectations which you can have. And I'm talking all in relevance to your existing challenges. I did mention about those challenges because no technology can drive a business. You are the driver of business. Technology is just the enabler. So we are talking of machine learning, we are talking of artificial intelligence, we are talking of blockchain, we are talking of IoT and bots. Okay, I think one of the session, I think everybody said that this is going to sound like French. Everybody's going. So what's going to be machine learning? Is something which, like how you groom your kids, you groom the machine to think like a human being. And that's where the algorithm and the artificial intelligence would come into place. IoT is something which is where you can drive function through the command which you give over the internet from any of the devices. Bots are something which could be helpers to address queries which can come up. They are smartly designed. Artificial intelligence aspect is built there. And blockchain is for security of your transactions. So this is what is something which is what is going to be adopted. But the most prominent part of this is going to be AI. This is going to drive the future of procurement. This is going to be the most vital piece which I think all of you need to get prepared for. So what is artificial intelligence? It's a machine which is stimulated to think like human. And it has three elements. Three elements in the artificial intelligence. One, which is an expert system. What does it mean by expert system? You have a functional expert within on your organization. How does he thinks? That is what the machine is trained to think. Right? The second, and the example which I'm saying is negotiation strategy. Okay. So I gave you the example that I want my computer to tell me that I've got this 3 quotes from these suppliers, which supplier I need to negotiate, and what is the target price I should be aiming at. There are multiple elements here. Market information. If it is commodity-based linkage, commodity price trends. If it is historical negotiation which are available, historical negotiation pattern. All these need to get accounted for a machine to tell you, oh, this is a guy, you go and target 100 rupees as a price. He's given currently 110 rupees as a price. And I'm giving you a logic, why did I come to that suggestion of 100 rupees? Right? That's the expertise. The speech recognition. Yeah.
As you told, this expert system, the system is going to record this expertise of a buyer or the...
You need to build that in the algorithm.
How to build this into the system.
Okay. So that's where
Since
the
it is
algorithm...
not recorded, as of now, it is not recorded in the system.
See, in fact, I'll come to that if you don't mind. In my next slide, I'm talking about it. Yeah? Because I think it's a very valid question, but I would tell you that how do you go about doing that? So speech recognition. So then one of the component is speech, and you have experience in Siri to a very basic level. All this, Alexa, which recognizes speech. The third is a machine visual. So artificial intelligence combines vision, speech, and human intelligence, all put together and give you, all combined, put together, a suggestive decision or a decision. Certain places you want AI to take the decision because those are maybe not very vital elements and move forward in the process, right? Some examples. Spend classification. I think I did this here. One of the things it's one of the biggest challenge, which is what every company has it. And I think as long as you're able to translate how would you like to classify your spends and then look at your items and pick up those categories or do automatic categorization through an algorithm, AI can do spend categorization. Supporting sourcing, the chatbot supporting sourcing. So you would have, all kind of contextual suggestions coming up when you're taking up a decision. I gave you one example of the AI when you're talking about the negotiation pattern. Okay, go to this guy and target this price. Most important now, which is supplier risk identifications. You have multiple sources of data. Geopolitical areas, news which are coming up in the market, the political instability which is coming up, all of that plus suppliers' historical performance and what is happening with the suppliers' raw material situations. Variety of factors would help you to determine the risk attached to that supplier. And benchmarking, big data benchmarking, which is very, very vital because when you're looking at a huge pool of data, you are looking at benchmarking somewhere. What decision which you are taking, say you are paying a price, what are the other forces which are going to tell you that what has been the market pattern of those prices? And there are a lot of integration which can happen. And that the AI can do it. It can have crawlers going on the internet and picking up a lot of information and plugging it in your platform. So when we look at all of this, Deloitte found that 88% people believe that automation and robotics will seriously impact procurement in the next 5 years. And I think this is your answer, which you're looking at the next point. You cannot jump to anything if you do not have the base framework in place, right? It's extremely important for you to put that base framework in place. No AI would work if the data purity is not existent. So, how do you prepare for the future? I think this is something which has got a partial technology area and partial your own attitude towards suppliers. Very, very important because I think finally your performance is to a great extent dependent on the supplier's performance. Understand that what is the value delivery in context of your function or your challenge of different technology. Understand that very clearly. It's very important that which technology for what purpose you need to adopt. Capabilities to manage change, because when you are bringing about a fast change, and I think it's the two areas, one is the technology area, and the second area is, of course, the changes which are coming within the organization in terms of innovations as well as demand changes. And the most important, which you cannot afford to ignore, is innovation. Start thinking out of the box. Don't think traditional. Start taking some calculated risk, which is what you can actually bring about transformation in your procurement process. Don't hold back. I mean, these conferences are good to build some kind of enlightenment in case if you have not gone through things which I think a lot of other speakers have been also talking, but then you need to start taking decisions. Small decisions. It need not be big decisions, but you need to start charting out your journey. So how to select your technology partner? I mean, this again, one more question which you may have. Okay, whom do I go with? Someone who understands your pain areas. Very important. If it's a hardcore technology company and if it is not understanding your pain areas, cannot deliver the solution. One thing is very clear. Prefer a partner who's aligned to your objectives. So be very clear about what are you expecting out of the solution. And ensure that what the partner is committing as a deliverable is aligned to meet your objective. Because I don't think your business any outsider can understand better than what you can understand. You spend years there. I can't come and advise you that you should do the business not in this manner. This is the manner in which you are supposed to do business. Don't fall for perception. Go for a reality check. And this is a very, very vital point. Make sure that you exactly see at least a prototype, dirty your hand, see the adaptability of the solution. Can it be adapted? Determine sustainability, because you're starting this journey for long term. It's not a short-term partnership. It's a long-term partnership. So make sure that the partner is aligned to your long-term vision. Security, very important factor that you need to ensure that security is of the paramount importance. And very, very critical factor, evaluate adaptability. If the solution, howsoever fancy it is, if it is not possible to adapt across the organization, if it's not easy to adapt, what benefit it's going to give? Because finally all benefits gets translated only if it is adopted. And it has to be adopted in totality. And don't forget, this is very, very important. Technology is not a driver. It's an enabler. Please don't forget this while making any decisions. It needs to fit your business vision. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
I have a question to ask.
Please.
So I heard a lot of buzzwords around, AI and, RPA, everything, blockchain, and this is my almost 23rd year in the procurement function, starting from manufacturing to service organizations, right? So when I look at all Fortune 500 companies I got a chance to work with or to get on the various platforms, professional platforms, so my realization is that the technology, particularly in India, is at a stage where we are using technology only for either as a repository, like for the historical transactions, or max at a P2P space where we are, paying our vendors using some automation, which is now progressing. But I do not see, the technology role with AI, blockchain, making a massive change into the procurement space. Still, all the decisions are being taken by the sourcing managers, which is, yes, the data is an enabler. But I do not see any, very disruptive kind of a technology application, which is really adding value to these large organizations. So my question is, is this a large industry which the technology companies are propagating, or is it in the evolving phase?
See, I believe that there is nothing like large, medium, small. Procurement function, the challenges across the board is the same challenges. So any technology which is assisting to help resolve those challenges is something which you need to adopt, because technology is a back end. The application is the front end. So what leveraging that technology, what application which you are using, first part, which is very, very vital, because if that application is not giving you the not fulfilling your objective, that application is of no use irrespective of what technology is being used. Two, that when you are talking about AI, it's dependent on the data which is created. Finally, it is data, right? You are looking at past data and you are looking at prediction for the future. If your data purity is non-existent currently, if that data itself is not there, no AI can come and play a role. So I think it's a very, very simple. That's why I took you all through 3 stages: traditional, digital, and future. The future, maybe you're not even gone to the digital stage, because the future would come only when you surpass the digital stage. If you not digitize your processes, those data points are not available. Today, Excel files give you questionable data purity, and maybe you do not have real-time processing possibility. First get to that point and then think about the next level. Because I don't think the technology you should be looking at straight away taking a jump. I mean, it's like I mentioned about machine learning. It's a step by step, how you train your kids. So I think you need to train yourself. You need to train your organization, go through this stage. Now we go to, but this is where it is going to go. So if you are not starting the journey, I think you can be in big trouble. I mean, this is the fact. These are reality. This is happening in many companies, and many companies have started looking at the future. So if you're not on a digitization stage, first thing I think you need to have a vision and go step by step. I'm not saying take a plunge, because that's risky. When you take a plunge, it's a big risk which is involved, because you have no clue. Experience, step by step, as you gain experience, go to the next stage. You have to have your vision ready. So you know that whichever the solution partner which you are trying to align, that person is aligned to your vision. So risk also gets limited. Yeah. Sorry, I think I'm running short of time.
Thank you so much, Suhrid, for that presentation. Please give him a warm round of applause for those insights. So I have the pleasure of presenting the memento of the occasion to you.